The first time I met Emma, it felt like stumbling into a scene from a story I didn't know I was part of yet. It was late August, the air sticky with summer heat, and the campus was buzzing with the nervous excitement of new students finding their way. I was standing awkwardly near the orientation desk, clutching a map that looked more like a puzzle than a guide, when I saw her. She was across the courtyard in a simple white sundress, sunlight bouncing off her hair in soft waves. She was laughing, loud and unrestrained, the kind of laugh that makes everyone nearby turn to look, not because it's disruptive but because it's magnetic. She was tossing a frisbee back and forth with her younger sister, who had come along to help her move in. I remember thinking she had this brightness about her, like she carried her own piece of summer wherever she went. As fate would have it, the orientation leaders paired us together for the week's activities. I was assigned to help her find her dorm, her classes, all the little details of settling in. From that first walk across campus, our conversation was easy. She teased me for getting lost even though I'd arrived 2 days earlier, and I teased her back for her terrible sense of direction. By the time we reached her dorm, it felt like I had known her longer than a single hour. Over the weeks that followed, Emma became the constant thread in every new experience. We grabbed late-night pizza after study sessions, walked across the quad under the glow of string lights, and sat in the library sharing headphones, listening to music we both secretly thought was better than what everyone else played. She told me she wanted to be a writer, to capture emotions in words so no one would feel alone in them. I told her about my own fears of being average, of never standing out in the world. Somehow, with her, I didn't feel foolish admitting the things I usually hid. I don't know the exact moment friendship turned into something more for me. Maybe it was the night she fell asleep on my shoulder after a movie marathon, her hair tickling my cheek. Maybe it was when she held my hand absent-mindedly while we crossed a busy street, her trust in me so natural. Or maybe it was simply the accumulation of all those small, tender moments that made my heart race without warning. But here's the truth I tried to bury: I loved her. Not in the casual way people say they love coffee or a favorite song. I loved her with a quiet intensity that scared me. Every time she smiled, it felt like a gift meant only for me. And every time she mentioned a boy who had caught her attention, I felt an ache I couldn't explain. Still, I told myself it was enough, being her friend, her confidant, her safe place. Because sometimes, loving someone means standing in their sunlight, even if you're never the reason it shines. It didn't happen in one dramatic moment, it happened slowly, like drops of rain gathering into a flood. My love for Emma grew in silence, hidden beneath the ordinary rhythm of our friendship. Every shared joke, every late-night phone call, every secret whispered in the dark added weight to the truth pressing against my chest. I wanted her in ways I could never admit. One evening, not long after midterms, she invited me to her rooftop. It wasn't much, just a flat square of concrete above her apartment, lined with old folding chairs and fairy lights she'd strung up to make it feel magical. The city stretched out before us, glittering with 1,000 lights. She leaned back on her elbows, the night wind tangling her hair, and asked a question that nearly broke me. Do you ever wonder if you'll recognize love when it happens? Like, what if it's right in front of you and you're too blind to see it? I froze. My pulse quickened. I wanted to laugh and tell her she was looking at it. She was the love standing right in front of me. But instead, I played it safe. I think love feels like home, I said carefully. Like the place you run to, not from. She smiled faintly at my words, but her eyes turned wistful. I think I might be falling for someone, she admitted. Her name for him was John. She spoke of him hesitantly at first, testing the sound of it with me, maybe gauging my reaction. He was in her creative writing class, older, with a steady job, a calm voice, and a kindness she admired. He makes me feel safe, she said, looking down at her hands. I nodded, swallowing the bitterness rising in my throat. That's good, I whispered, forcing my voice steady. You deserve someone who makes you feel safe. Inside, though, I wanted to scream. Why couldn't it be me? Wasn't I the one who stayed awake on the phone when she cried about her parents fighting? Wasn't I the one who walked her home after parties, making sure she reached her door safely? Wasn't I the one who knew her fears, her dreams, her favorite childhood song? That night, when I returned home, I lay awake replaying her words. I felt guilty for the way my heart clenched when she said his name. Guilty for the tears I blinked away in the dark. Guilty for wanting her in ways she didn't want me. But most of all, I felt terrified. Terrified that I was already losing her, that this man would take up the space in her life that used to be mine. The next morning, she texted me, "Thank you for listening last night. You're the only person I can really talk to." My heart cracked at the irony. She trusted me with her secrets, but the one secret I held, that I loved her more than anything, remained trapped inside me, locked away by fear. Winter arrived like a slow, suffocating blanket. The city streets sparkled with frost, and Christmas lights glowed in every window. Emma invited me over one evening, saying she needed company. I showed up with a bottle of cheap wine and a box of chocolates, pretending it was just another ordinary night between best friends. Her apartment was warm, the fireplace crackling as if it had been waiting for us. She was curled on the couch in oversized pajamas, hair tied in a messy bun, her cheeks pink from the cold. She looked so effortlessly beautiful, it hurt to breathe. We settled into our usual routine, movies, laughter, teasing each other about our terrible taste in snacks. But beneath the comfort, something in me was breaking. Watching her smile, hearing her mention John casually, his text that made her laugh, the dinner they had last week, was like twisting a knife I had willingly handed her. Halfway through the movie, I couldn't take it anymore. My chest felt tight, my heart pounding so loud I was afraid she'd hear it. I muted the screen, and she turned to me, eyebrows raised. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. I stared at her, at the girl who had unknowingly become my whole world. My throat ached with the words I'd buried for so long. I need to tell you something." Her expression shifted, concern mixed with curiosity. "Of course. You know you can tell me anything." The silence stretched. My palms were sweaty, my voice shaky. I know. I love you. Not just as a friend. More than that. I think I've loved you for a long time." The words hung in the air like fragile glass. For a moment, she didn't move. Her eyes widened slightly, and then she looked away, her lips pressing together. The fire popped loudly, the only sound in the room. "Oh," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She twisted the blanket in her hands. I care about you. You know that. More than almost anyone." She paused, her throat tightening. "But I'm engaged now." The word hit me like a train. Engaged. My chest hollowed out, and I struggled to breathe. She had never said it so plainly before. My heart, fragile as glass, shattered in that instant. She reached for my hand, her touch warm and trembling. "I don't want to hurt you. You're so important to me." "I wish," she stopped, eyes shining with unshed tears. "I wish things were different. But they're not." I bit my lip so hard it almost bled. Part of me wanted to beg, to tell her she didn't have to marry him, that I could love her better, truer, deeper. But I saw the conflict in her eyes, the guilt, the loyalty she felt toward John, and I knew if I asked, I would only lose her completely. So I forced a smile, though it tasted of salt and sorrow. "It's okay," I whispered. "I just needed you to know." We sat there in silence, the fire crackling between us, two hearts reaching but unable to meet. Outside, snow fell softly, covering the city in white. Inside, I felt only the cold. The months that followed felt like slow torture disguised as celebration. Emma had said yes to John's proposal, and suddenly her life became a whirl of bridal magazines, flower samples, dress fittings, and endless talk about venues. And through it all, she pulled me closer, not further away. She asked me to be her maid of honor. At first, I wanted to say no. The thought of standing at her side, smiling while she promised forever to someone else, felt unbearable. But when she looked at me with hopeful eyes and said, I can't imagine doing this without you. I didn't have the strength to refuse. So I nodded, forcing a smile, and sealed my own heartbreak with that simple word, yes. From then on, I became part of every moment leading up to the wedding. I went with her to try on dresses, standing outside the fitting room, waiting for her to step out in white lace and silk. Every time she twirled in front of the mirror, asking, "Do you think this is the one?" I swallowed the lump in my throat and told her she looked breathtaking. She would beam, and I would die a little more inside. I followed her through florist shops, listened as she debated between roses and lilies, between ivory and blush. She dragged me to cake tastings, fed me tiny spoonfuls, and laughed when I pretended to be an expert. To her, these were fun, carefree days. To me, they were days I had to perfect the art of smiling while my heart bled. What made it worse was how much she needed me. Whenever John was busy with work, she leaned on me. "You're my person," she'd say, grabbing my hand as we ran errands. "You keep me grounded." And though I longed to be more than just her person, I let myself be what she needed. Because I loved her enough to play the part she'd written for me, even if it wasn't the role I wanted. At night, when I was alone, I poured my feelings into a journal. Page after page filled with words I could never say aloud. I wrote about the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her future, the way her laughter filled a room, the way I hated John not because he was cruel, he wasn't, but because he was the one she had chosen. Some nights I grew angry, at myself, at fate, at the universe for giving me something so beautiful only to take it away. Other nights, I just cried quietly into my pillow, wondering how I would survive standing at the altar, watching her promise her life to him. Still, every time she called, I came. Every time she needed advice, I gave it. Every time she smiled at me with gratitude, I swallowed my pain and smiled back. Because if being her best friend was all I could be, then I would be the best at that, even if it destroyed me. The night before the wedding felt heavy, as though the world itself knew what tomorrow would take from me. Emma asked me to go for a walk, just the two of us, through the quiet streets of the old part of town. The city was alive with distant music and laughter from bars, but around us, everything was still. The cobblestones glistened under the glow of golden street lamps, wet from an earlier rain. We walked side by side, our shoulders brushing every so often, like echoes of something we could never be. I stole glances at her, memorizing everything, the nervous way she fiddled with her ring, the way her lips curved into half-smiles, the way her eyes shone with both joy and fear. "I'm scared," she admitted softly, breaking the silence. Her voice cracked like a child's confession. "What if I'm making a mistake?" My heart jolted. Hope and pain clashed violently inside me. I wanted to grab her hand, to tell her, "Yes, it's a mistake. Don't marry him. Marry me instead. Stay with me." But instead, I steadied my voice. "You're not making a mistake, Emma. You're just about to change your whole life. It's natural to feel afraid." She turned to me, eyes wide, glistening with unshed tears. "I just don't want to lose us. You and me. You're my safe place. My anchor. Promise me we'll always have this?" Her words cut deep, both comforting and cruel. Because what she wanted, to keep me close while giving her heart to someone else, was the very thing tearing me apart. Still, I nodded. "You'll never lose me," I whispered. And in that moment, I wasn't lying. No matter what happened, I knew I could never stop loving her. She stopped walking and leaned against the wall of an old brick building. The lamplight cast her in gold, her dress fluttering in the night breeze. She reached out and touched my cheek, her fingers lingering as though she wanted to memorize me, too. My heart thundered so loudly I was sure she could hear it. "Thank you," she said softly. "For everything. For being here when I need you most. I don't think I could do this without you." Her touch lingered, and for one suspended second, the world went still. My lips trembled with words I didn't dare release. "Don't do this. Don't marry him. Choose me." But I swallowed them, burying them where they had always stayed, in silence. When she finally pulled her hand away, I felt cold. She slipped her fingers into mine and held them tightly as we walked back to her apartment, our steps in sync like always. At her door, she hugged me. Her heartbeat thudded against mine, and I wanted to freeze time. She whispered, "Sleep well tomorrow." I nodded, unable to answer. I walked away, my chest aching, knowing that tomorrow she would walk into a new life, and I would have to watch her go. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay awake, staring at the ceiling, drowning in the cruel knowledge that in a few hours, I would lose her forever. The morning of Emma's wedding felt surreal. The air was crisp, the sky impossibly blue, as if mocking the storm inside me. My phone buzzed nonstop, reminders from the bridal party, texts from friends asking if I was ready, but all I wanted to do was stay in bed, bury myself in blankets, and pretend the day wasn't happening. But Emma needed me. And I had promised her, again and again, that I would be there. So I forced myself up, put on the dress she had chosen for me, painted on a smile that felt foreign, and went to stand by her side one last time. When I saw her in her wedding gown, my breath caught. She was radiant, more radiant than I had ever seen her. The lace hugged her shoulders, the skirt flowed like water, and her veil framed her face like something out of a dream. For a moment, I almost forgot she wasn't mine. For a moment, I almost believed I was the one waiting at the altar for her. She looked at me with wide, nervous eyes. "Do I look okay?" she whispered. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "You look perfect." The ceremony was held in a hall draped with pastel flowers and soft candlelight. Every detail screamed romance, details I had helped her pick out, details that now felt like shackles around my chest. The guests filled the seats, buzzing with excitement, smiling and whispering about how beautiful she looked, how lucky John was. And then the music began. Emma walked down the aisle, arm linked with her father's, her gaze fixed straight ahead. I watched from the side, forcing my smile to stay in place, while inside, every step she took felt like her walking further away from me. When she reached the altar, John looked at her as though she were the only person in the world. And I hated him for it, not because he loved her, but because she loved him back. The vows began. Each word she spoke was another crack in me. "I promise to stand by you. I promise to love you, forever." The ring slipped onto her finger, a symbol of a future I could never give her. And then, the kiss. Applause erupted, cheers filled the hall, and I clapped too, because that's what was expected. But behind the applause, my heart shattered. She was his now, in every way I had once dreamed she could be mine. Later, during the reception, she asked me to give a speech. My hands trembled as I held the microphone, staring at her glowing face. I spoke about how we met, about her kindness, her strength, her ability to light up a room. My voice wavered, but I smiled, because I meant every word, even if they were words I wished I could have spoken as her partner, not just her friend. When I finished, she hugged me tightly. She whispered, "I love you. Thank you for everything." And though I knew it wasn't the kind of love I wanted, I whispered back, "I love you too." But this time, I meant it differently. I meant, I love you enough to let you go. The days after the wedding felt like living in a fog. The noise, the laughter, the music, the sight of Emma in her gown, it all haunted me like a recurring dream I couldn't wake from. I went home that night and collapsed on my bed, makeup still smudged on my face, the hem of my dress tangled around me. I cried until my chest hurt, until I had no voice left, until silence finally wrapped around me like a cruel comfort. In the morning, the world kept turning as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Emma was no longer just my best friend, she was someone else's wife. The thought stabbed me in the ribs every time it crossed my mind. I avoided social media, knowing the pictures would be everywhere, Emma and John dancing, Emma and John cutting the cake, Emma and John kissing beneath the fairy lights. I couldn't bear it. She texted me, of course. "Thank you for everything, you were amazing yesterday. I don't know what I'd do without you." I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. How could I tell her that what I wanted was not to be the best friend standing by her side, but the person she turned to at night? How could I confess that loving her was tearing me apart? Instead, I typed back a simple heart emoji and forced myself to hit send. Nights were the hardest. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment we'd ever shared. The late-night conversations, the secrets whispered under blankets, the times her hand had brushed against mine and I'd felt sparks. I wondered if she'd ever felt them too, or if it had only ever been me, reading too much into friendship. Weeks passed. I tried to fill my days, work, coffee with other friends, reading books that couldn't hold my attention. But Emma's name lit up my phone constantly. She wanted to tell me about her honeymoon, about how nervous she was cooking her first meal in their new apartment, about silly little arguments she and John had already had. I listened, I laughed, I gave her advice. And every word was a blade twisting deeper inside me. One night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine and finally let myself admit the truth. I was grieving. It wasn't a death, but it felt like one. The loss of a dream, of a love that could never be. I had fallen in love with my best friend, and she had chosen someone else. No matter how much I wanted to rewrite the story, this was how it ended. But even through the pain, I realized something else. I couldn't let this destroy me. Emma was still my friend, and I still loved her. Maybe not in the way I wanted, but enough to want her happy. If I truly loved her, I had to learn to live with this ache, to build a life beyond her, even if it meant carrying this quiet heartbreak for years. So I took a deep breath, wiped my tears, and whispered into the night, "I'll be okay." Even if I didn't believe it yet, I had to start somewhere. Time is strange when you're healing. Some days felt endless, the weight of Emma's absence pressing on me like a storm cloud. Other days passed in a blur, each hour slipping through my fingers before I could even process it. But slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, the heaviness began to lift. I started saying yes to things again. Dinner invitations, weekend trips, late-night karaoke with coworkers. For the first time in months, I let myself laugh without guilt. I realized I had spent so long centering my world around Emma that I had forgotten I had a life of my own, dreams of my own, a heart that deserved to be loved back. Of course, there were setbacks. Some mornings I woke up and missed her so badly I felt sick. Sometimes I caught myself scrolling through her photos, staring at her smile, wondering what she was doing in that exact moment. But I no longer let those feelings consume me. I let them pass, like waves crashing against the shore, knowing that the tide always pulls back. Emma and I still talked. Our friendship was different now, lighter in some ways, heavier in others. She told me about her new life, her hopes of starting a family, the little joys of married life that made her glow. And though it hurt, I found myself genuinely smiling for her. Because even if she wasn't mine, I couldn't deny the truth, her happiness still mattered to me. One evening, months after the wedding, I sat with her in a cafe. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I don't say this enough, but I'm so grateful for you. You've always been my anchor." I smiled, and for the first time, the ache in my chest didn't feel unbearable. "I'll always be here," I said. And I meant it. Not as the girl hopelessly in love with her, but as the friend who had chosen to let go, for her sake and for mine. That night, walking home under the city lights, I realized something important. Loving Emma had changed me. It had broken me, yes, but it had also taught me the depth of my heart, the courage it takes to love openly, even when that love isn't returned in the way you want. It showed me the strength it takes to let go without bitterness. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe one day I'll meet someone who makes me feel the way Emma did, someone who looks at me with the same fire I felt for her. Maybe I won't. But either way, I know now that my story doesn't end with her wedding. It ends with me choosing myself. Because sometimes, love isn't about holding on. Sometimes it's about releasing what you can't have, honoring what you felt, and walking forward with the quiet hope that better days, and maybe, better loves, are waiting just beyond the horizon. And as I took that final step into the night, I whispered to myself with a steadier heart than before, I will be okay.